Welcome to the show all around Azure. Today, I'm Frank Boucher, like all the other day. So I'm Frank Boucher, I'm a Microsoft Cloud advocate, and with me today on the show, I have Louis Bugnion.
Louis, what? That's my new
Laurent,
name.
why I say Louis? Laurent.
I don't
I
know.
say, that was French. I have Louis.
I have Louis. Okay. C'est moi. Bonjour.
Sorry about that. So Laurent, you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Okay. Well, my name is Laurent Bugnion. I'm a Swiss guy. I live near Zurich. I'm a cloud advocate for about 3 years now, almost 3 years. And before that, I've been working since pretty much '96 in different industries. A lot of coding, but since 2001, no, what do I say? Since oh la la, when did .NET come out? Yeah, I think 2001. That's correct. Yeah,
Something like that. Yep.
I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah. So
2000.
since
Yeah, around 2000.
yeah. So since the very first version of .NET, I've been pretty much using .NET as my main programming language. I was an MVP for 11 years. I was a Microsoft Regional Director as well, which is another partner program. And then I joined Microsoft and I had to give up all my awards and rewards and all that because you cannot be both. So I did that, but I didn't regret it. It's really awesome to work in Azure, and the colleagues, the team is absolutely amazing. So I
Oh
think you
yeah.
will agree with me. We've been learning a lot. And yeah, so one of my focus, one of my interests, I would say, in my prior jobs was
Mm-hmm.
very much around Xamarin and client application development in general. And I thought it would be cool to show a small project that I have worked on, which is a generic push notification client that you can use on Android and Windows. In theory, nothing prevents you to implement it for iOS as well, but I find iOS development a little bit complicated, I would say. And since I use an Android and Windows devices for myself, I did the implementation there. And of course, because I'm in Azure, there is a lot of Azure services also involved into that. And so that's what we are going to see today.
Excellent. Like,
Mhm.
since you start talking about that project earlier, being live, I was super excited about that. And like today, we're just getting started. So like, you,
Yes.
you will need to come back to us, and like we will be continuing. But today, at the end of the
Or if
show,
you
we
want
should
me,
have.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. Like I'm assuming like give some thumbs up in the chat if you agree with me. But yeah, so but at the end of the stream today, we still have something that is like that works, right? We are building something
Yeah,
today. Okay.
exactly. So the goal today, if my time estimation is correct, the goal today is going to have the Android part of the application working. And the key to understand what's going on here is that Xamarin is a cross-platform programming framework,
Mm-hmm.
which means that you're going to share a lot of code. But with push notifications, what's interesting is that it's one of those scenarios where you reach a point where you cannot share that code anymore. There is some code that we just cannot share. And the reason for that is that receiving a push notification on Android, on Windows, and on iOS is very different. It's a very low level operating system based functionality. And the reason is because if you think about it, push notifications often arrive when the application is not even running. So the operating system is going to do something. It's going to receive the notification, and then it's going to show a toast. Or if the application is running in the foreground, it's going to pass that notification to the application. And from the time where where the notification has been received, then you can pass it to the shared code. And I'm going to show how you can do that. We are going to use dependency injection to do that. It's pretty cool. And then after that, you can start treating the notification in a unified manner on all platforms. But the act of receiving the notification is going to be depending on the platform. So that explains why today, the goal of today is going to receive a push notification on Android And so we are going to have to configure a little project on something called Firebase. I'm going to explain more about that later. Then after that, we'll create the application, and then we'll go into the Android application, even though we do Xamarin Forms application, where typically we don't really touch the Android app, the Windows app, and the iOS app. Here we will go into that to configure it so that we can receive the push notification.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get started.
Cool, yeah,
You
absolutely.
share your screen? I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. My screen is actually shared already. Can you see it?
Yeah. I was
Perfect.
just asking you if I can show it.
Yeah, no, you can, absolutely. So cool. So that people can follow if they want, I created a GitHub repository, and this is the GitHub repo, sample-azure-xamarin-notifications. If you're lazy to type, you just do gslb.ch/491. Okay, so that's the short link.
The long URL is just pasted in the chat.
Okay, very cool. So people can see that. And so in this repo, the state that we have now is going to be the state from today, all right? And then after that, when I start working on the next steps for the next session, I'll put some tags so that it's clear. But here you have the state for today. So as you can see, there is also pretty extensive documentation on how you can configure stuff. A lot of that is not started yet because, well, that's where we are at this point, right? But if you click here, you will see the specification of the application. And so as you can see, we are going to use a number of products. We are going to use Xamarin. We are going to use the notification hub, which is a really cool Azure component that is basically used to push notifications. And today we are barely going to touch it. We are not going to use it, in fact, today, because we are just in the Android part. But in the next session, we will configure that so that we can have one push, and then it's going to go automatically to Windows, to Android, and to everywhere. We have here Azure Functions. Again, today we are not going to touch it, but next time we'll create like an endpoint, if you want, an API, which is going to receive any content that you want to push to the notification. And we'll use also Cosmos DB because we want to store the notifications so that we have we keep track of what's going on, basically. So that is the component. The spec itself, I don't know if you do that, but I like to just sketch quickly my pages when I start a new application. So it's a little bit how it looks like. We are going to have channels, not today, but later, where basically you can say, all right, if I want to send a notification there, I'm going to say, okay, this is channel so-and-so, this is channel, I don't know, Azure virtual machine, for example, because I'm watching a virtual machine or something like this is going to be sorted. This is a little bit how a channel page looks like. Here I have images. I'm not sure if we'll do images or not, if we have time or not. We'll see. This is a notification that you receive in your device. And for each notification, we'll have also a page where we can delete that notification from the system. So that's kind of the
I like your trash can.
Sorry?
I like your trash can.
Yeah, I know, right? I was an artist in a former life, so.
But like it's perfect because when it's too clean, I had that problem. Like I don't know for you, but when I was a consultant or a developer, like if your draft are too clean, they think half the code it's already half done now.
So it's actually it's a great lesson. So there is this one of our principal designer at Microsoft, and of course right now his name escapes me. I have his book. Right now I forget. Sorry about that because he's amazing. He has done a lot of work on the Microsoft design, and the Microsoft design is actually very successful. The Android design, the flat design, was very much inspired from the Microsoft design, and we are totally taking a sideway here in the conversation because I'm very passionate about that. And he's also one of the reasons why Buxton, of course, Bill Buxton, right? So he's absolutely awesome, and he wrote a book about sketching and sketching. So that's Bill Buxton here. Sketching is super important when you do any design work because sketching means you do something and then you throw it away. You should not be attached to what you draw. because if you get attached to a drawing, it prevents you from iterating on it and from being better, from getting better results, right? And so his idea is that you should totally, draw something quickly on a page and then you throw it away, right? You shouldn't get attached. So anyways, that's kind of the idea here. But that said, I also have a little bit of a architectural diagram. So let me show that to you. Is that the correct page? No, it's not. Where is my OneNote? Oh, I think I probably closed it. Never mind, I'm just going to reopen it. All right, so here we have some architectural, and so I'm going to explain a little bit how that works out. So here we have on top this purple area here. This is really so that any system should be able to send a notification to a mobile device. And again, it's a generic notification client. So typically when you do a website and you want to handle push notifications or a website or anything really, you're going to create an application specifically for that, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's say that if you have Reddit, for example, or Twitter, they are going to have a Twitter application. And the Twitter application is going to receive Twitter push notification, and that's all good. But in my case, what I wanted to do, I wanted to have a generic client with a generic endpoint so that any system can send a notification to my phone or to my Windows device. So what is a good scenario for that? For example, well, let's imagine that you are doing some video rendering on a server, for example, on Azure, and you want to be notified when the rendering is done. Okay, so that's one possibility. So you can have your rendering, and then you can have something observing the rendering, and then when it's done, well, very simply, you just send a notification, and as you can see, the notification is going to happen via a post. So it's a simple HTTP post. It's a REST call with some JSON, okay, some super simple thing. So any system really can do that. Another scenario that I'm using a lot, for example, is to watch some automated DevOps pipelines. So for example, let's imagine that I do a commit, or that somebody does a commit to a branch of a system that I'm watching, and then it starts creating, like deploying a website, etc. And I want to get notified again when it's done. So that's another scenario. There are all kinds of long-running scenarios like that are interesting. And so as soon as you have any system which is able to send a post notification, a post request using HTTP with some JSON, then you're golden, okay? So the system will post that to an endpoint, and this endpoint is going to be an Azure function, okay? And then we'll use the notification hub. Now, you may have heard in the past that we had something called mobile backend as a service or app center, which was handling push notifications. And I would say they did a pretty good job at that, but this is getting retired. And at the moment, really, the recommendation is to use the notification hub, Azure Notification Hub, to do push notifications. And Azure Notification Hub is pretty awesome. It handles Android, Windows, iOS. It even handles Windows Phone, believe it or not. Still good old Windows Phone.
Why not?
Yeah. It also allows you to send notifications, for example, to Baidu or to Amazon devices, Amazon Fire TV devices, and all that. So there are really a large range of notifications that you can do. And it's a very nice interface, really. So it's quite easy to handle. And then after that, this is where we start diverging between the different systems that we have. So for Android, which we are going to do today, which is down there, this phone form factor, could be a tablet, of course, it doesn't matter. We are going to use something called the Google Firebase Cloud Messaging, FCM. And the Firebase Cloud Messaging is basically an interface which is going to be responsible to actually do the actual push notification. All right, so here we'll have a path from the notification hub to FCM. And on the other side, for Windows, we'll have the same thing. So we'll have our Windows form factor down there, and we'll have exactly the same mechanism, but this time we'll use, of course, the Windows push notification service, which is called WNS. And if we want to add iOS to the mix, then we'll have also the APNS, the Apple Push Notification System. So we always have this layer here which is going to be diverging depending on the platforms that we use. Another thing that I added into the application is a small database, small local database, and here we'll be using SQLite. We'll see that in another session. We are not going to do that today. And the reason why I have a small database here is that like this, I can store the notifications locally, because typically push notifications don't stay on the device, right? You receive them, you tap them so that you start the application. And then after that, the notification is gone. So here we are going to store them. Like this, we'll have a client where we can see all the notifications that we received in the past. The last piece on this diagram is on the server side, we'll have also a database, probably Cosmos DB, and we'll use a free tier of Cosmos DB, the free version. And here we are going to store all the notifications which leave the endpoint are going to be stored there, so that at some point, if we need, we can also do a synchronization, for example, if the device is offline for a while. So push notifications are pretty awesome. They have a few features, like, for example, they are going to retry if the device is offline for a period of time. They're going to retry a few times. So like this, you know that there is some security. They arrive on the device even if the application is not running, which is an advantage over other systems, like, for example, Signal R. Signal R is absolutely awesome. I love Signal R, but Signal R only works if the application is running, right? And so, of course, because it's watching the socket, while the push notification system, of course, gets the notification even if the application is not running. So that's going to help us. I can show, if you like, because I have on my phone, I have installed this application. So let me send a notification. And in order to send the notification, I'm going to use here something called Postman. I know that you also know Postman. You told me you're using something else called Insomnia, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
Just recently I switched, and like, in fact, it's on Twitch. I saw Michael Jolie. It's a ball builder bar. Anyway, Triple B, Michael Jolie. Always mix his name. He showed me Insomnia, and I start using that, but it's very similar, just like a
exactly. It's a bit of a personal preference almost, right? Yeah. So Postman, I'll show you later how we are going to use it. But here I have, this is the actual system that I'm using, right? And of course there is a key and everything, so I'm not going to show you the key. Like, these people cannot just send a notification to this endpoint and send me a notification on my phone.
How many of you are disappointed now?
Yeah, I know, right? I'm so sorry. So in the headers here, and I'll show you how to do that, but I hear the key is secret. But basically what we are going to send is some JSON here. And so I'm going to try to zoom, because you told me that you saw the zoom before, right? So here we have some JSON, and the notification, as you can see, is super simple. It's a bit of JSON with a title, a body, and then a channel. And like I said, after that, the application is going to receive stuff based on the channel. And now if I put Postman to the side, and this is my phone here, so this is my physical phone. We can have a quick discussion later why I'm using my physical phone and not an emulator. But basically from now, I can send the notification, all right? So it's going to hopefully, after a short delay, of course, arrive on my phone. All right, now we see the small clock, the small bell here, sorry.
Right now it's right under the title of the show. Can you move the windows?
Yes, I can. Okay,
to the right, let's say, a little bit.
Oh, to the right. Okay, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, so here you can see this small bell just arrived. And if I open here, you see that I was listening to Rammstein before because I needed some inspiration, but also you see the notification we just sent, right? Hello world, this is the message. And if I click here, we are going to start the application. And here you see the application with fantastic design, as you can see. And the title, the message, as well as the channel. And we see also some information. When was it sent from the server? When was it received on the phone? As well as every notification will have a unique ID so that we can synchronize. You can do a few things. You can mark it read. So now I say, okay, I read it, it's fine. You can delete it if you want. And if you go back in time here, you see those channels. So this is the main page. And here, for example, this is a notification that we just received that I'm able, if I want to select and to delete. So now it's gone, all right? And if I send another notification, I can try again. Let's put it here. All right, so now the application is just running. So we did receive the notification, the bar blinks, but of course it doesn't come as a push notification on the phone itself. There is nothing inside here because the application is running already, and so we have already handled the notification. So that's kind of what we will build in steps, something similar at least. And this is basically the application which is running now. So let's see how we can build that.
Yeah, let's get started.
Cool.
I love it.
All right, so like I mentioned, the very first thing we are going to do is go on the web in a Google page. Yes, we are going to see a Google page here. And when I say Google, my phone pops up and tells me, what do you want to do? So no, Google, I'm not talking to my phone right now. So we are going to create here something called Firebase. Firebase is like again, right, kind of mobile backend as a service. So it's a service where you can create all kinds of things for Android applications, and in fact, it also allows you to create some stuff for iOS, for example. We are going to use that here in our project just as a gateway to Android. And then we'll concentrate our efforts on Azure, on the notification hub, because we also want to treat Windows. And Firebase doesn't allow you to do that. So we are going to start by creating a new project. So here I'm into console.firebase.google.com. I'm logged in with a Google account, all right? And the first thing we need to do is enter the project name. And so that's just going to be the like a nickname for the project if you want. So I'm going to call that Notif. And here you see this is the unique name of the project, Notif-C438E. It was just created out of the box by Google. And here it's going to ask me, do you want to add analytics to your project? And here I'm going to say no, because we are going to handle the analytics on the Azure side. So we'll have in our functions, we can write to application insights, for example. We can also add application insights to our Xamarin application because it's a .NET-based application. So I want to have all my analytics in one place for Windows, for Android, for iOS, for everything. So that's why I'm not using the Google Analytics here. Let's create the project. It's going to just take a short moment. And when the project is ready, we are going to be able to configure the cloud messaging, which is really, in this particular project, the only part that we want to use from Firebase here. All right, so let's continue. We have our project ready here. We see the dashboard for the project. And now we are going to get started by adding Firebase to our application. And to do that, I'm going to click, oops, I see the stream paused. Did it pause on your side as well?
Oh, it's possible that it buffers from time to time, but it
okay.
seems to be running.
It said it had an error, but anyway.
I'll just refresh your browser, don't worry.
Yeah, that's why. Okay, because I'm keeping an eye on the stuff, right? To make sure that I'm not, that, my previous self from 5 seconds ago is not saying something stupid. Okay. Tricky because, anyway. All right, so we get started by adding Firebase. So we are going to do Android here. So let's click on Android, and now we need to register the application. So I don't know, for those of you who do some Android development, this is familiar. They expect a unique name for your application, and this unique name is going to be used as a unique ID pretty much throughout everything you do. It's going to be in the manifest of the Android application. And so the convention is that you will start by using pretty much your website, but in a reverse way. So for example, I'm going to say com. Yep. All right. And then I'm going to say Galasoft because that's kind of the stuff that I do my private projects with. And then dot, and then finally the name of the application, the name of the project. And this is unique because galasoft.com is unique, of course, and .notif, well, I own what is inside com.galasoft, so I know that Notif is not used. The rest, you can just leave it like that. I don't add a nickname right now. It doesn't matter. And I'm registering this application, which means that basically I'm reserving that name with Google. Nobody else can use com.galasoft.notif for any project. And now we get to an important step, which is a configuration file. As you can see, it's a JSON file. We are going to download it. So click here to save it, for example, to your desktop. All right. And we'll see later how we use it in our Xamarin application. This is a file where you have all kinds of configuration information for the application for what we are doing here. Now I'm going to click on Next. Here it tells you how you can add the Firebase SDK in, of course, an Android application. But here we are not doing an Android application. We are doing a Xamarin application. So it's going to be C#, so you can safely ignore that. Let's click on Next. And then we can basically continue to the console because we are done with our application. You can see the name here. So now we are going to need some information, but we can get that information later. We'll come back to the console. We are going to need some keys so that we can send messages at all. We'll come to that later because right now we can start configuring the application itself, okay, the Xamarin application itself. So let's go to Visual Studio. And here I'm going to select a new project. And in the new project choice, I'm going to select here a mobile application. If you don't see it in your recent project template, you can just type here, for example, Xamarin. And then it's going to show you everything. Now make sure to select mobile app Xamarin Forms. And why do we use Xamarin Forms? Well, Xamarin comes in different flavors. So you have Xamarin Android, Xamarin iOS, and on top of that, you can also do Xamarin Forms where not just the business code is shared, but also the UI code is shared. Now, I'm not going to explain that too much in detail here because it's not a Xamarin course per se, but it's kind of how it works. And when you see the project, it will probably make sense. I'll explain more to you all a little bit later. So let's select mobile app, Xamarin Forms. Now we need to give a name to that project. Simply going to call that Notif. All right. In production, we would probably choose something a little bit more, elaborate. And then I'm going to create this application. So it's going to do a few things. Before it does a few things, we still need to select the template for the application. Here we are just going to start with a blank application. And as you can see down there, we have Android, iOS, and Windows. So like I said, we are going to use Windows here because I also want to receive notifications on my tablet. I'm not going to select iOS here just because I'm not treating it in this demo, but if you wanted, you can add iOS, and then you're going to have also the iOS project created. For iOS, if you want to publish an application, you need a Mac. Just be careful about that. Even if it's a Mac that you rent, okay, that's fine. But you need a Mac at some point. You can also share that Mac with your colleagues. That's okay. So now the project is getting created. And when we are ready, we are going to take a look at what was created. All right, just a little bit more time.
So feel free to ask any question in the chat if at some point like you would like to have more details on a section. For me, it's all new, so I'm just absorbing everything. But if you have any question, feel free to ask in the chat, and we'll interrupt Laurent and ask him.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very relaxed, right? I think you all got that, so don't hesitate to interrupt if you have anything that is not clear. All right, so now I have my Visual Studio created. So let's open the Solution Explorer, and in there you're going to be able to see the projects that were created. So we have 3 projects. We have one project called Notif, which is the shared code. All right, so that's going to be where we put the shared code for our application. Mm-hmm. And as you can see, there is also a main page.xaml there. And so what it means is that everything that we put here is going to be rendered to Android with Android controls, and it's going to be rendered to Windows with Windows controls. If we had iOS, it would also be rendered to iOS with iOS controls. So Xamarin uses native controls. So like this, you have a very good performance, and it's a look and feel which users are familiar with, okay, behaviors that they are familiar with. But you can program the UI in a unified manner. We'll take a look at this XAML page a little bit later. Then after that, we have 2 what we call the head projects. the Android project and the UWP project, the Windows 10 project. So why do we call them heads? It's because this is really the application that gets started when you run the application on your device. So for example, if I deploy this application to Android, like we'll do later, this application, this Android application will get started. And then in the main activity, which is, if you do Android development, you know main activity, it's like the entry point for the application. Inside there, what they are going to do is that they are going to create, as you can see here, a new Xamarin Forms application, and then the shared code is going to get started. And we have something very similar on the Windows side. On the Windows side down there, you have an app.xaml, which is the Windows 10 app.xaml. There is some code behind app.xaml.cs. And again, this application is going to get started. And inside there, they are going to say, all right, now we are going to start the Xamarin Forms application because we want to share as much code as possible. So that's how it works. And this is why we call those head projects. They are really the projects that you install. So here we are going to do Android. And so I'm going to select the Android version of the project. I'm going to right-click and select Set as Starter Project, because when I click on Control F5, I want this project to get started. And because my phone is already connected, you can see that as a target up here, I have my OnePlus phone, which is available already as a target for the development. So I'm going to be able to debug directly on my phone, which is super convenient, especially when you do push notifications.
Okay, so you do also develop on your phone for real, like no emulator.
It depends a little bit. So here, as you can see, I have an emulator. Okay, it's a Pixel 3 with Android 10 API 29. So what are the advantages of the emulator? First of all, it's going to allow you to try things out directly on your machine, so you don't need to connect any device. All right. You can simulate different device form factors. For example, I could simulate a tablet. I could simulate even a TV.
That's true.
All right. I did back then some Android development for TVs, for the top box TVs. So that could be something. The disadvantage of the emulator, I would say there are mostly two disadvantages. First of all, it's a little bit slow, especially to start. It's a little bit sluggish compared to a real device. But really, mostly, the main disadvantage of the emulator is that it doesn't react exactly like a real device. Okay, you're using your mouse instead of using your fingers. Of course, here I have a touch screen because I have a Surface, so I could use my fingers as well, but it doesn't react exactly the same manner. And especially for low-level functionalities, like, for example, taking a picture, receiving a push notification, these kind of things, then usually I prefer to use my phone. And I have a few phones that I use as development devices. But of course, the emulator, another thing which is cool with the emulator is that you can also simulate old versions of Android, for example.
Yeah, multiple devices, and you can pick like another one to see like how your app. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. So there are also some advantages to the emulator, but here for this demo, since we are doing push notification, I think that it's a good idea to use the phone. In fact, I started I started to build this. It's okay. We'll let it build, and then we'll move on with the configuration. So what else can I tell you? So here we have a few things in Android. We have one file which we are going to use to configure things. It's the Android manifest. All right. So this file is important. It's an XML file which is going to contain all kinds of configuration for your Android application. We are going also to use it later if you want to configure, like, for example, the icon of your application. Inside the resources, you can place those icons and stuff like that. Right now, we have pretty much some default material like the Xamarin icon. All right. So we are going to leave that for now, but later you can also change that if you want. All kinds of things you can do, but typically in a Xamarin Forms application, we don't spend a lot of time inside those projects because we do most of our work really in the shared code project where we code once only, and then after that it's going to run on all platforms that you support. So it's kind of it's quite an advantage here. All right, so I think I'm just going to stop the build because it doesn't quite make sense to build at that point. So I'm just going to click here. And now we are going to start configuring our Android application. So why Android? Like I said, it is a push notification. It's a very low-level functionality, tied to the operating system. So we need to configure our Android differently at first. And the very first thing we are going to do is set a few things in the manifest. So there is actually a UI for that if you want, or you can just open the XML. But if you go to the properties of your Android project here, you can actually see the Android manifest or some information from the manifest here. And most importantly, you have here the package name. And you remember this com.galasoft.notif that I created before. Well, here I'm going to just replace the company name with Galasoft. And like this is what's going to establish the link between the Firebase console, where I have a project called com.galasoft.notif, and my device where the application runs under the same name. Since we are here, we can also go and set the internet property because we are going to use internet permission. Sorry, we are going to use internet to communicate, right? Now I can save that. So that's the first part of the configuration. And then after that, what we are going to do is add some NuGet packages because in .NET, we use NuGet packages to get all kinds of libraries, okay? So here for Android, we have two interesting NuGet packages. We are going to get here in the browse. So here what I did, for those of you who don't know, I did a right-click, manage NuGet, and this is the .NET package manager if you want. So I'm going to type here xamarin.googleplayservices.base. So why do we use Google Play Services? Well, it's because what we do here, the push notification thing, actually relies on Google Play Services to arrive on the phone. So if you have an Android phone which doesn't have Google Play Services, you might have to install an extension. It's a small package that you install. And this NuGet package is going to help you to do that. So here what we are going to do with that package is we are going to check if the device that the application is running on supports Google Play Services or not, okay? Other Android devices don't necessarily support Google Play Services. For example, Android Fire TV services, which are Android-based services, they support another version of the App Store, of another application store, really, which is the Amazon application store, for example. So it doesn't work exactly in the same manner. All right, so let's install this package. All right, and then the next package we are going to use, because we are using Firebase on the server, we are also going to use here the Firebase.messaging package because we do some cloud messaging using Firebase. So I'm going to use some utilities from this package. So I'm going to install that as well. Let's click on accept. And when this is done, we are going to add the configuration service, that's that JSON file that we downloaded before, to our application, because I told you inside this JSON file, you have a lot of configuration information that the application is going to use. So let's right-click, add existing item. Sorry about that. I'm going to go on my desktop. And here I should have my Google service.json that I downloaded before. And now this file, if I open it, you'll see that it's a JSON file with all kinds of information, all right, about my application. This file needs to be built into the Android application in a special manner. And so to do that, you're going to click here on right-click and select the properties of the file. And into the build action, you're going to open, and you're going to be very disappointed because you don't see the Google service.json. So that's a quirk of the system. When you add your Google service JSON, unfortunately, right now there is a small bug into Visual Studio where it doesn't automatically add this build action. So what we are going to do, what the IT crowd is recommending all the time. We're going to switch it on and switch it off and on again, right? So I'm going to restart Visual Studio.
I was wondering where you are going with that.
I know, right? So I did. So I switched off Visual Studio. I restarted Visual Studio, and this build action is now available. Now it's a good thing that Visual Studio nowadays starts a lot faster than it used to, because back then you would have time to go and have a coffee, right?
Yeah.
While you restart Visual Studio. But nowadays, I have to say, Amanda Silver and her team did amazing work on Visual Studio. It's starting way faster. And so it is still taking a few seconds, as you can see. But as soon as it's ready, we are going to be able to configure our Google Service JSON. Here we go.
But when you start Visual Studio in a mobile development environment, isn't it starting also like prepping the emulator? Could it be that also is slowing? No?
No, it's a great question, actually. So the emulator for Android, it's actually an emulator which is installed system-wide on your machine. Oh. So it's exactly the same emulator. We are using exactly the same emulator than you would use if you are using Android Studio or doing some Java development or some Kotlin development for Android. That's the same emulator. Here, the thing that we have here where it says, hey, select that, or if you go into Tools, Android SDK Manager, Android Device Manager, all that is actually just a gateway to the Android tool. It has a huge advantage to use the native Android development tools, is that they react in exactly the same manner. So if you're used to them, you know how they work. And also, actually, we did a lot of work. Microsoft did a lot of work with Google to make the emulator way faster. Like the emulator now is using Hyper-V. It's using the acceleration and all that. So it's already way faster than it used to be. Before, you would start the emulator and then you had time to pretty much go and have a good night's sleep, and then you would come back. No, I exaggerate a little bit, but nowadays the emulator starts way faster, so it's quite nice.
Okay. Yeah. I thought like some prep was done, because I know like
no,
depending on...
it's just Visual Studio doing its thing. Yeah.
Okay, because I know
also I'm streaming. I'm on the Surface Pro 4, so it's a relatively old Surface, so there is that also. Okay, so I'm selecting again the Google Service, the JSON. I'm going to right-click Properties, Build Action, and now we see Google Service JSON, yay, as a build action. So it means that if I select that, when I do my first build, the service, this file is going to be integrated into the Android manifest so that we have all the information that we need to move forward. All right, so at this point, we are in good shape. So now we can start the implementation of the application itself. And so one thing I want to do, I want to prepare my application so that when I receive the notification, that's going to happen in the Android project. But very fast, I want to be able to pass that information to my cross-platform project, to my shared code. All right. I want to spend as little time as possible in the Android code, because of course, this is code that I'm going to have to duplicate in the Windows project as well. So I don't want to duplicate code. Yeah. So what we are going to do, we are going to use a technique which is called dependency injection to do that. And I'm going to go into the shared code project, and I'm going to define here a new folder. And I'm going to call that model, for example. You could call it Hello World. It doesn't care about that, but I'm going to just call it model. And inside this model folder, I'm going to right-click again, and I'm going to add a new item. And the item I'm going to select, so now we are doing some C#, okay? So I'm going to select an interface. The interface is basically an abstraction of a class. It's going to define the functionality of the class, but without defining the implementation. And this is going to allow us to have two different implementations, one implementation in Android, one implementation in Windows. But the client, the consumer of those classes, of this interface, doesn't need to know if it's using the Android implementation or the Windows implementation. Okay? So it's kind of the beauty of this pattern. So I'm going to call that I, because in C#, very often for interfaces, we prefix them with an I. It's kind of silly, but that's what we do. I notifications receiver. One E too much, all right? Let's click that. And I'm going to make this interface public. And now I'm going to define the interface itself. And I cheated a little bit. I prepared some code because I didn't necessarily wanted people to watch me type too much. So in this iNotification receiver, we are going to define some events. So anybody in the shared code side who is using this interface, this object, is going to be able to subscribe to the notification received event. And there is also an error received event in case something goes wrong, okay? And now we are going to have two methods to raise those events. And so again, this is abstracted. This is an interface. It's a contract. So I'm just defining here the signature of those classes. We are going to have a raise notification received and a raise error received. And those methods here are going to be called from the Android side, respectively the Windows side, but those events are going to be subscribed in the shared code so that we have one handling of those notifications. Good, so now that we have that, if we have an interface, we are going to have also an implementation for this interface. So let's go into the Android project. I'm not going to do the Windows implementation for now because right now it doesn't matter. Okay, we will do that in another session. So here in the Android code, I'm going to add a new folder, which I'm also going to call model. I'm going to right-click and add a class, okay? And this class, I'm going to call it notification, if I can type, notifications receiver without the I at the beginning, because this time it's a class, okay?
Okay.
Let's click OK. And now I'm going to say, all right, this is a public class, which is implementing, the colon means implementing the iNotification receiver interface that we have defined. Now, in the Android, I actually see this class because you see the Android project has a reference to the shared code project. And similarly, the Windows project has also a reference to the shared code project. So everything that you do in the shared code project is going to be automatically available to Android and to Windows later. Good. So now I'm just going to add the namespaces, right? And then I'm going to implement the interface. And so as you can see, this is what I defined before. I can bump the font a little bit here. We are going to have notification received, error received as an event, and then we are going to have those two methods. Let's remove the code here. And the code is really super simple. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to check if, I don't know if you know this syntax, it's really awesome. Before you would do something like if error received not equals null, error received, and then you would say this for the sender and then the message, okay? Well, that's kind of annoying to type, right? You don't want to have to type if error received not equals null. So when is error received null? Well, in C#, events are null when nobody subscribed to it, okay? So that's kind of a way to say, all right, if somebody subscribed to the event, I'm going to raise it. Otherwise, I'm not going to do anything. But this syntax is very annoying. It's too much work. So what we do now is that in C# we have this question mark here, which is doing exactly the same. It's going to say, if error received is null, don't do anything. But if it's not null, then invoke using this as a sender, which is a notification receiver, that's the sender, and then the message that we received as the parameter for the event if you want, because that's what I defined. I said that this event handler is going to receive a string as parameter. Okay?
Yep, really cool.
Cool. So I'm not sure if everybody's sleeping or if it's just super clear, but I don't see many questions, so we'll just continue. We'll do exactly the same thing for the notification received event. And basically, our implementation is already complete. All right, so now we have that. So one thing we are going to do here, which we are going to add, I told you that I want to use dependency injection to basically create this object and make it available for my shared code. So how does dependency injection work? And I think that maybe the best case scenario is to use a small schema to explain that. So let's go to OneNote. And so what we are going to do here is that we have this interface, right, which is iNotif received. And then we have a number of implementations. We are going to have one for Android. And then we are going to have one for Windows. And then we could have more, okay? So when we have a client, anybody, in our case, it's going to be the shared code, the main page, which is going to want to use this interface. Of course, it's not going to use the interface. In the interface, there is no code. It's going to actually use either that guy or that guy or that guy. Okay, depends. So in order to allow you to find this thing, we can use dependency injection. And what dependency injection does, it's basically like a shelf, like a register, if you want. And inside this register, somebody, in that case, the Android system, is going to say, hey, I'm running on Android now. My code is running on Android. So I'm going to take this implementation of my notification. I'm going to create it. And then I'm going to store it inside this. This is like a cache, if you want. Okay?
Okay.
And then the page, when the page actually needs this iNotif, it's going to go and then it's going to ask the cache and it's going to say, hey, do you have an iNotif? I don't care if it's an Android iNotif or a Windows iNotif or an iOS iNotif. I just want an iNotif, which does notification received, error received, and that's it, right? And the cache is going to say, yes, I do have an iNotif because somebody registered it, and then we are going to take it. Similarly, on Windows, same thing, right? On Windows, you're going to have the other scenario where Windows is going to say, so now I don't have that anymore because I'm on Windows. I'm going to register that. And the page is going to do the same thing. It's going to say, do you have iNotif? And the cache is going to say, yes, I do. I have that. Cool. So there are many, many ways to do dependency injection on Android, iOS, Windows, etc. in Xamarin in general. But in Xamarin Forms, there is actually a dependency injection framework. And that's what we are going to use here just for simplicity purpose. So we are going to use here something which is going to say, super simple, right? It's going to say xamarin.forms.dependency. And it's going to say, hey, inside the dependency injection, inside the cache that we saw before, I want to add the type of notification receiver. And since the type notification receiver implements iNotification receiver, when the page asks to the dependency system, do you have an iNotification receiver? It's going to say, yes, I have one. So here it's a declarative way to do dependency injection using the Xamarin Forms framework. In Windows, we have another way to do things. I'll show that to you the next time when we handle Windows. You can also do things in a not in a declarative manner, but in a code manner. So you have multiple ways to do that. But here, simply with this line, we have said that particular class should be created and put into the cache so that we can consume it later. Okay, so now we are ready to, I would say, to handle the notification. But so far, we have not received the notification yet. So we are going to go into the main activity. And again, this is code that is just for Android right now. Still C# code, but just for Android. Inside this class, this is the main activity. That's a little bit like the main page, if you want. So when you start your application, it's going to say, all right, I'm going to create this class. And then it's going to call onCreate. That's the first event that is called by the Android system. Very similar to what happens in Java, by the way. It's absolutely one-to-one the same. And then inside there, normally you don't have to worry about that when you do Xamarin Forms, because very fast it's going to create the Xamarin Forms application. And then you do all your code into the shared code. But here we need to handle a little bit of non-shared code. So what we are going to do here is we are going first to define a channel ID. This is just a unique ID because you could have multiple notifications channels. So here we define an ID for that. And then we are going to have two methods. The first method is called isPlayServiceAvailable. And it's going to use here, it's going to ask for a notifications receiver. and it's going to do a few things with the Google API. So this is going to use one of the NuGet packages that we installed before, the one which is using the Google Play services. And essentially what it's going to do is that it's going to check if the Google Play services are available on that phone. It's possible that you're trying to run this code on a TV, for example, that doesn't have Google Play services. Actually, my TV has Google Play services, so I'm able to receive push notifications on my TV, for example, which is kind of funny. So there are all kinds of scenarios, but if you don't have it, then we are going to say this device is not supported. And in order to notify the shared code, to notify the UI and eventually the user, we are going to use this raise error received. So then the receiver, which is the iNotification receiver that we did before, is going to raise the error received event. And then right now we didn't subscribe to that event yet, but later in the UI, we are going to say, oh, if there is an error, we are going to show the error in red and say we cannot proceed. Okay? Good. The other method that we need is going to be the one which creates the notification channel. So that's the method which is going to talk to the Firebase project and say, hello, I'm here. I'm registered. It's going to do a lot of things automatically by basically using the information that we got from the Google JSON file, from the Google services file, and then it's going to create the notification channel. And so in order to do that, this notification manager here comes from android.app. So basically it's like a low-level class inside the app, okay? Good, so that's going to do that. Now those methods are declared, we still need to call them. So of course we are going to do that in onCreate. As soon as the application is created, we are going to call those. So let's do that. So here we are going to say, all right, I need a receiver, which is an iNotification receiver. And remember before I told you we are going to ask the cache, do you have this iNotification receiver? That's exactly what this code is doing. We are going to call xamarin.forms.dependency service and say, get me an iNotification receiver.
Yep.
And here I'm so confident that it's available, I'm not even going to check if it's null. Immediately I'm going to say, all right, now raise a notification and say, hey, I'm starting the registration process. It's just an information to the user. Then we are going to check if the Google Play services are available. Then we are going to create the channel. And when it's done, we are going to say, now I'm ready, okay, ready to receive notifications. Sounds good?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Cool. So now we have configured our main activity, all right? And now we can go into the shared code, because into the shared code, that's where we want to spend most of our time. So let's do that. Let's go into the shared project, into main-page.xaml. So the XAML file here is defining the UI. It's one of the ways to define the UI in Xamarin Forms. You can also define UI in code if you prefer. Personally, I like XAML very much. So here, this is a default thing. We have the page, which is the content. Then we'll have a stack layout. It's just a panel where we have multiple UI elements, multiple buttons, labels, etc. stacked. And then we have a label to show a message. This message right now just says, welcome to Xamarin Forms. I'm going to give this label a name. Just going to call it main label so that I can address it in the code later. Now, for those of you who know me, you may be surprised that I'm not using MVVM here. MVVM is an architectural pattern that we use a lot with XAML. I just wanted to keep things simple, especially in this first session. So right now, we are not going to use MVVM. I'm just explaining you basically the principle of how we do things. All right, now I am in the code behind. So this part here was a UI. And when you click something, code is going to be invoked into this class. So this class is attached to the XAML. You see here I have the XAML and here I have the XAML.cs. We call that the code behind, okay? So inside this code behind, we are going to do a few things. First of all, I'm going to need the same notification receiver. And I'm using the interface because I don't want to know if I'm going to use the Android one or the Windows one. I don't want to know that. I'm just saving it as an attribute for now. Then inside the main page, so when the page is created, that's my shared code, I'm going to obtain this notification receiver from the dependency service. I'm going to ask the cache, do you have an iNotification receiver? And if yes, I'm going to subscribe to the events. I have two events, notification received and error received. The way to subscribe in C# is to do plus equal and then to declare a method. Okay, so I'm going to ask Visual Studio to generate this method here. Same thing for that, because it's easier to do that than to write them by hand. So here I have my two event handler. I have one which is going to be called when there is an error, and one which is going to be called when there is a notification which arrives. What am I going to do here? I'm going to use this code. As you can see, it's simple code, but it's not super simple code. I have something called dispatcher.begin invoke on main thread. Okay? Now that one is a doozy, so pay attention, people. The problem is that the notifications arrive on a background thread. You have multiple threads into an application, okay? It's what allows your device to continue being responsive when you do some long-running code. So you have a main thread, which is a UI thread. That's the thread which is handling all the UI events. And that thread should be left as untouched as possible because you want your UI to be responsive. That's kind of the idea. So then when you have a long-running task, like for example, listening to notifications, that's going to run on a background thread, on another thread. Okay, like this, your UI is still responsive. When you receive the notification and you give it to your shared code, it's going to come from the background thread. And if you try, you see this this string here, which is here. This is a string. This is a message that I want to show inside my UI. Okay, if I do this from a background thread, it's going to crash the application because you cannot interact with an object belonging to the main thread from a background thread. This is totally forbidden. That's going to crash your application. Okay? So what do you need to do? Well, you need to do something which we call marshalling. You need to take the object from the background thread and basically ask a kind of a controller that's called the dispatcher to receive it on the main thread, and then it's basically translated. It's going to be allowed. It's like going through a SAS, if you want, through a safe zone. Okay, and so that's exactly what this code is doing. On the UI, I have an object called dispatcher. I'm going to call begin invoke on main thread, which, like the name says, everything which is inside this block here is now safely inside the main thread, and then you can interact with your UI. Okay, so that part was a little bit tricky. I hope you got it. If you didn't understand it, watch the video again. If you still didn't understand it, call me, all right, or talk to me on Twitter, and then I'll explain to you. It's very important because otherwise your application is going to crash.
So 555-5555.
Oh, you know my phone number? Awesome. Cool. All right, so now we have that configured, so we are in good shape here. What else do we need to do? We are going to, let me see, we're in the main page, okay. Now we need to do a little bit more configuration. Don't worry about the time, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back into the Android application, and I'm going to go and open the manifest. Remember the manifest, I told you this is an Android file which is going to configure your device. And before we modified it using the UI, but now I'm opening it as an XML file. And here inside the application, we are going to add a little piece of XML, which is going to say basically, hey, I want to register for those Firebase service, this Firebase service. Please register me as being able to receive notifications. All right. All this is described in documentation. So you don't need to know that by heart, but basically this is what this is doing. And then finally, we're almost done. Receiving notifications in Android is a little bit more complex than in Windows. In Windows, it's simpler. What we are going to do, the last thing that we are going to do, still in the Android application, we are going to create a new class. And this class, I'm going to call it, I'm going to copy that because I don't want to mess the name. I'm going to call it Firebase Messaging Service X. It's an extension of the Firebase Messaging Service, which is built into the Android application. And so when I declare this class, and I say it's an extension of Firebase messaging service, which I'm going to add to the namespaces, and then I go and declare some attributes on top of it. I say it's a service. What it means is that this class is going to run as a service in the background, even when your application is not running. And that's basically the class which is going to receive the event, okay? So by creating this, I'm telling my Android device, please listen to notifications, even if the application is not running. That's basically a service.
So,
and it's going to listen.
I have a question. I might be like out topic here, so like feel free to just say I will answer that later. But that's when I install an application, I need to give permission, right? Because
correct.
Okay.
So push notifications are a little bit special because when you install an application, you're correct. You need to give permission, for example, to access your camera, to access your contacts, etc., etc. However, push notifications, by default, you give the permission already, okay? So there is no explicit permission asking you when you install an application, can I receive a push notification? That one is not part.
It's part of the system. So like by using an Android phone, like you will have
kind of implicitly gave the permission to get notifications. However, you can also revoke that. So if you go into your system, into your settings, because here we are really using the notification system of Android as it is for any other application, right? It's not a specific system. So if you go to your Android device settings and you say, I don't want the Notif application to show me push notifications, then those push notifications are never going to reach your device. That's your choice as a user. Of course, you can do that. There are also all kinds of permissions that you can set up in the manifest. So here I did a right click on the project, properties, and then Android manifest. And here you have all kinds of things. Like, for example, I could say, all right, I want to have access to the camera. Now, this one, if I click it, when I start the camera for the first time, it's going to ask you for your confirmation as a user. Do you allow the application Notif to actually use your camera? Okay. Here, I don't need it, so I'm not going to use it. Okay. All right, so let's finish the implementation for this class. What we are going to do is override two methods. So the first one is called onNewToken. And what this method is going to do, it's going to receive a token from Firebase because this token is going to be necessary. It's a unique token for the device so that you can send a notification only to that device if you want to. Okay, that's a token. And here you need to handle what's happened here. Normally, what we are going to do later, right now we are just going to write it to the debug, but later we will save it on the device and we will also send it to the notification hub because at some point the notification hub is going to send the notification to those devices, so it needs to know. Right now we don't have that part ready, so we are just going to say to basically show the token to the user, okay, to the developer. Then we are going to override another method, which is called onMessageReceived. All right? And this method, like the name shows, is going to be called when a new notification arrives. And right now, we are not going to do anything. We are going to just put a breakpoint here just to check what's going on. So now is the time that everybody is excited about. We are going to start the application. All right? So let's go to Visor. Let's start the application. It's going to just take a little moment to compile.
See, now it would be wonderful if I have sound effects and I could have a drum roll.
Well, it takes a little bit longer than that, so my hands are going to bleed at the end, I think, if I do that the whole time, so let's not. But yeah, it's going to just take a moment. During that time, you can admire my beautiful phone's UI, right? I'm actually reading a book right now, which is called If It Bleeds by Stephen King, which is a really cool book. So you see, I'm sharing all my secrets with you, right? It's a short story book, which is fun. And here I just received, yeah, so that's the beauty of live. I received some messages while while we are talking, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so
If you
tools.
know Laurent contacts, it's now the time to poke him. Like send him texts, send him
Well, you can
messages.
poke me, but keep it clean, please. Okay,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
don't want to scare all the
Of course,
users,
of
all the
course.
viewers. Okay, I did actually put my phone in. I did put my phone in. Oh no, because that's the thing, right? I cannot put my phone in Do Not
Yeah, I
Disturb
know.
because
You told me
otherwise the
that.
notification will not arrive, so will not be shown. So we don't
I
want to do that.
I did my good host at the beginning and told Laurent, okay, like put your phone on like do not disturb and blah blah blah. And he said, no, I can't because I want to receive notification.
Exactly.
So that's a loophole.
Yeah, that's a loophole here, and that's why it's very dangerous to do these kind of things. So why is it taking so long? That's a great question. The reason why it's taking so long is because it's a first build. It's the first time that we build and that we
Oh yeah.
deploy to the phone. And so Android is actually building a native application. So it's going to compile the application in .NET. Then it's going to do all kinds of things to optimize it for your device. That's taking a long time. The following builds are way faster. Also, of course, it's taking a little bit longer here on my device because I'm running Skype, which is also taking some resources. I'm streaming, right? So that's taking a little bit longer. But I thought sometimes when I do a presentation, I actually pre-compile the application and I'm kind of cheating, right? I'm putting a pre-compiled version, a pre-baked version on my device. Here in the stream, I decided not to do that because I wanted you to have kind of the correct experience. Anyway, the rest is going to take just 5 minutes, so we are well within the time.
Well, it's perfect. Like we prefer real stuff. But like at
Yeah,
the
I
same
know,
time,
right?
if you have
It's
any
kind of makes sense.
questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh,
I think the viewer are
during
all
that time, I can
captivated
explain a
by
little bit more.
the
I can explain a
caption.
little bit more about Postman. So we are going to use Postman
Yep.
to send a notification through the Firebase console, okay? And so to do that, there is actually an API to do that. And this API is to post here a message to https fcm.googleapis.com/fcm/send. Now, this is the only session where we are going to do that because later we'll actually use a notification hub to send the notifications, okay? But here we are going to use that. And what do we need? We will need here in the headers. Remember last time I told you you had the key. That was very much in the beginning. You have a key associated to your project. And this key, you're going to have to pass it as the authorization token so that Firebase knows that, yes, I am allowed to send a notification. Yep. So let's go and get this key. It is available here in the settings of the Firebase console into your application. Inside cloud messaging, this is where you will find the key here. So I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go back to Postman and I'm going to replace here in my header of my post notification with this token that I just copied. Let's save that. And then we are going to need also something else in the body. We are going to send some JSON. We are going to send here some information for the notification, which is a badge that is shown when the application is not running. And then we are going to also send another block, which is called data. And this is what is going to be used by the application when the application is running. So Android is a little bit particular. It has two different packages. Typically, you're going to have the same information here and here. But here I decided to have different information so that we can clarify what's happening. And then we have here the to part, which is the token, which is specific to that device. So in that meantime, the application is now running. So now we can see that it did register for the notification. Everything went well. I don't have an error or anything. It just says ready, okay?
Yep.
So I'm going to be able to go here because you see my something happened, right? I have a breakpoint into the on new token. I received from the Firebase system the unit token, which identifies this device. Mm-hmm. And if I look at it in the debugger, You see, it's a very long string of character. That's a unique ID for my particular OnePlus device here. So I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to continue running the execution of the project here. Okay, so now I'm basically completely ready to receive notification. So now I have this token, I can go into Postman, and then I'm going to say, hey, this notification that I want to send now, I want to send it to that particular device, which is my OnePlus device. All right?
Okay.
Cool. So first of all, we can do a very quick test to see, because here I have another breakpoint. I have basically here notification received. We can actually send a message directly from the Firebase console. So let's try that. I'm going to go back to my project overview. I'm going to go down there into cloud messaging, all right? And here I have the possibility to say, hey, I want to send a test message. So let's do that, send our first message. I can enter a title. This is a title. And then I'm going to send the famous hello world, okay? And then I'm going to say, all right, I'm ready to send. Let's click next. That's how you would send a message if you want to do a marketing campaign. For example, you want to send a message to every device that is running this app, com.galasoft.notif. Let's click on next. You can even schedule it if you want to say, all right, I want to send it tomorrow or whatever. Let's review this message and click on publish. It's actually sending a message. If we have configured everything properly, drum roll, it doesn't seem to be the case because we don't receive the we don't receive the notification.
Then we need a sad trombone.
Sad trombone. I'm not sure what I did wrong here. Is my application running? It should be. Let me see. Yes, it is running. It is ready. Okay, I probably did an error in the system. So let me show you how we would send a message from Postman. It's probably going to fail as well because it's using the same infrastructure. So here, I'm going to just add something because I said, hey, I do have a receiver. Okay, like I told you, I want as soon as possible to give that notification to my main page, to my shared code. All right. So I'm going to get the receiver again from the cache. It's still the same cache as before. And here in the remote message, in Postman, I define that I have a data block, and this data block has a body and a title. And so I'm going to go here into the remote message, into data. I'm going to get the body, which is a string. And then I'm going to raise notification received with that message. So let's try that. It's probably going to fail because, you know, it's using the same infrastructure. I probably did a typo somewhere. I'm not sure exactly what I did, but basically the registration didn't quite work. Let's try anyway, just to be sure. And if that doesn't work, just go to the GitHub repo because the GitHub repo actually works. There you have all the instructions on how you can declare your Firebase console, how you can configure your application. All right, so now
that's the risk and fun of being like live coding. Like you might do a typo and it might not work. And here we're a little like we still have 10 minutes. So like if you want to do like a quick tour of the app, try to see the typo.
So funnily enough, it didn't work. Sorry, it didn't hit the breakpoint, but actually it did arrive.
It's working.
You see?
Yeah.
So it's working actually. So I'm not sure why it doesn't hit the breakpoint. It's probably a Visual Studio issue. There is a breakpoint here. So what's going to happen when you send a notification? And right now, I'm not sure why here it doesn't do it. Oh, I know why.
Could it be because you put the breakpoint after you send the package?
No, it's because I'm not actually debugging. I'm actually running the application. That's why. So let's start in debug mode. Like this, we can really analyze. I think we still have like 8 minutes. Huh?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to stop the app. I'm going to start debugging. Yeah, so it didn't hit the breakpoint because I was not in breakpoint mode, in break mode. So that's, okay, so now it fails. I'm not sure why. Okay, so whatever. If it fails, it doesn't matter because basically I can totally explain to you what's happening, right? So now...
we saw the notification. The message was on the other side.
What's that?
It was showing on your phone, right?
Yeah, it was showing on my phone, exactly. So let me show you my phone again. So this is my phone. It's ready. So it did the whole registration process. Now I'm into Postman. I'm sending the notification. And you see that it shows up on my phone. It says body data 2. I'm going to, okay, tell me what I should say. Like this, you see that it's not, I don't cheat,
Say,
right?
hello stream.
Hello stream. Why can I
All
not
right.
type?
Yeah.
Hello stream, okay. In the body, I'm going to send the notification. And now we see that it says hello stream. So basically what happened again, right? So that we understand here, it hit on message received. It got the receiver, which is my abstraction from the dependency notification system. It extracted the message from the data part, from the JSON, and then it raised notification received, which then went into the shared code. Now I'm into the shared code. And here it's going to go on the main thread because it comes from a background thread, go on the main thread, and it's going to show the message inside the UI using this code. So at this point, we have a success, so that's cool. I'm not sure exactly why I cannot debug, sorry about that, but it doesn't matter. You kind of understand how it goes. We have a success. It means that we have configured our Xamarin Android application properly to receive notifications through Firebase. And in the next session, I'm going to show you how you can configure the notification hub so that you don't need to interact with Firebase anymore. And then we'll do also pretty much the same thing we did here, but it will be way faster into Windows so that we can also receive notifications in Windows.
Wonderful. Super
All
interesting.
right.
I'm very happy. And now we still have about 5 minutes to answer any questions. So there's about 30 people in the chat, but very quiet.
Yeah, so it was pretty consistent at 30, so that's cool. And for those of you who are watching a recording, if you have any questions or anything, you can always, very happy, ping me on Twitter. I'm going to write.
Well, like your Twitter account is just written beside under your picture, Laurent.
Oh, well, here you go. So you just message me at LBUGNION, all right? And by the way, if you want to send a direct message because for some reason you don't want it to show up, which is absolutely fine, my direct messages are actually open. So you can send me direct messages, but only nice things. If you say you didn't like the stream, then it goes automatically to Frank, and Frank is going to handle that, okay? Just so you know. Cool.
Totally fine. And the show will be, of course, available on replay on Twitch, and we'll upload that also at Microsoft Developer YouTube channel. And,
cool.
And we'll put all the link, all the description information of your stuff in the show notes. So when it's on YouTube, in the description under it.
Yeah, and since we are back into the architectural diagram, I thought we could do a quick recap. So what we did right now is that we configured that part. All right?
Yes.
And then instead of going through endpoint notification hub, we actually called directly the FCM to send the message just to test that everything was working fine. So as you can see, we still have a little bit of work to do, right? But it's all fun. I mean, hopefully you like it. Next time we are going to worry here. Let me change color so that we see what we'll do next time. Next time we'll configure the notification hub, and we'll also do this configuration here, like that. And then instead of sending here to FCM, we are going to send directly to the notification hub. Like this, we'll send just one call to the notification hub, and the notification hub is going to handle talking to Android, talking on Windows. If we had iOS, if we had Baidu, if we had Amazon, it would do that as well. So like this, we don't need to send different messages like that. It's way better.
Yeah, wonderful. So we'll change view to go to side by side.
Okay.
Voila. So thank you, Laurent. So to know the next, when Laurent will be up, I know he's taking a little bit time off for soon. But to know exactly when he will be back with us, you can find the schedule down below in all those links on Twitch. We'll put also a link to the description if you're watching on YouTube. But on Monday we have Brian Benz who will
Oh, Brian is
be
awesome.
playing with us what he can do with a Windows terminal, and you really don't want to miss that. He will be
Oh, there
doing.
is one thing I didn't show.
Oh,
Hey,
okay. Let me
yeah, very,
get
very
back to you.
quickly, okay?
Yeah,
3
sure.
minutes. The thing I didn't show is that now the application is running, but what happens if it doesn't run? Okay?
Oh, yeah, it's
So I'm
true.
going to close all the applications,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to send a notification. And you see what happened is that here I have a small white square. Why do I have a white square? It's because I didn't define the icon for this application. All right? But I did receive the notification. And now if I tap on it, it's going to start the application. Right now, we are not doing anything with this notification. I'll show you in a future session how you can handle this scenario. But basically, it also works when your application is not in the foreground, which is pretty cool.
As expected.
As expected, exactly.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure having you, Laurent. I will free the platform so other people can jump in.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for being with us today, and I will say bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Laurent, to be there.